live sa ating studio ating mga panauhin at ang ating usapin nga ngayong umaga ay tungkol sa nuclear power. Ang nuclear power plant ay may masamang reputasyon sa Pilipinas dahil ito raw po ay hindi karapat-dapat delikado, mapanganib. Base na rin kasi mahal, di ba? Nangyari sa Chernobyl sa Russia at saka yung nangyari sa Fukushima, no? Sa Japan. Pero sa puntong ito na nasa napipinto na nga po tayo sa isang krisis sa enerhiya, muli nating sisilipin kung maaring maging solusyon ang ating nuclear energy. Ayon naman po kay Carlo A. Arcia na nakapanayam na po na rin natin dito sa ASPN. Siya po ang director ng Philippine Nuclear Research Institute na 6 na pong taon na daw po ang nuclear energy sa mundo. At hindi naman mapagkakaila na may, yun nga, nabanggit natin, may mga nuclear plant accidents no, na nangyari sa kasaysayan ng mundo. Subalit, mas marami pa rin daw ang nakikinabang dito at sa katunayan binigyan pa sa Amerika ng 20 taon ang mga nuclear power plants upang ito ay patakbuhin. Anyway, andito na, hindi na tayo magpapatumpik-tumpik pa.
Tubig muna, tubig.
Ikaw na magpakilala, Patty.
Ito na ang ating mga panauhin. Nakasama na natin si Kong Mark Cojuangco. Last December, pinag-usapan na rin natin yung nuclear. Yes. So welcome back to the show, Kong Mark.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. And of course, ang katabi niya, Mark Nelson. Baka magulat ang mga ibang tao kasi may Mark Nelson rin na artista. But Mark Nelson is a nuclear advocate. And you are just here visiting and hoping to convince people.
Not only a nuclear advocate, he's a master's in nuclear engineering from Cambridge.
Oh, from Cambridge.
Sabi ko gano'n sa kanila, teka muna, paliwanag natin bakit nandito si Ginoong Mark Nelson. Ilatag natin ang credentials niya to talk about nuclear energy. Master's, MPhil, no? Master's in Philosophy? In Nuclear Engineering from Cambridge University. At saka may degree siya in Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering. Ayun naman, ha? O hindi mo matatawaran ng credentials.
Where did you find him? Mark?
He's an environmentalist advocate that I walked into his office in Berkeley in 2017, I think. Yeah. When I was visiting my daughter, binibisita ko ang anak ko sa San Francisco, tumawid ka lang ng tulay, nandun ka na. So I took a chance.
Since the last time we had you here on the show, Congressman Cojuangco, nung December nga last year. And since then, marami nang nangyari.
Yes,
Nitong February 2022, yung nga binabanggit po natin na the President Duterte signed an executive order stating our national position for the nuclear power program. So ito na nga, latag na, di ba? Tapos na yung feasibility study completed on the viability of... And ito na, just recently, dito sa pagbisita ng ating Pangulong Marcos, sa New York daw, may mga kausap na.
Yes, NuScale. Kausap niya NuScale.
NuScale.
Yeah, which is a manufacturer of SMRs.
So mabilis ang moving forward. Where are we at exactly sa programa po natin?
Ang problema sa Amerika, kailangan po natin ng treaty. 123 treaty at saka yung 10 CFR 810 na treaty para they can supply us nuclear equipment and nuclear technology. So, meron pong mga bansa sa mundo, ang Canada, ang China, ang Russia, na hindi po kailangan yung treaty na yan. So, sana po...
treaty meaning tratado na kailangan dumaan sa ating Kongreso.
Yes, kailangan dumaan sa ating Senado hindi Kongreso. So dadaan po sa Kamara sa Amerika, dadaan po sa Senate sa Amerika, tapos pipirmahan ng dalawang administrasyon, American and ating Pangulo, and then tsaka dadaan sa ating Senado.
So that will take a long time.
Yes po. Kaya nga,
no way to escape it.
Inaano ko sila, yung mga American officials, hinihikayat ko sila, bilisan kasi nangangailangan talaga ang Pilipinas.
Yung urgency, no? Now na.
As in kahapon pa.
But ano, Kong Mark, that is if they will build a new nuclear plant.
Even for BNP. Because it's American technology.
The Hitachi.
So, it's Westinghouse.
Westinghouse, sorry. Yes. So, yes,
so ang Japanese, ang Koreans, they're using American technology. So, pati sila apektado.
Okay. So, Mark, this is what I'd like to ask you. You've been here. I heard that you visited our Bataan nuclear power plant. What is your assessment? Is that something that we can rehabilitate? Is that something that we can work with? Or are you pushing more for what we call the modular nuclear power plants?
1 week ago, I was still urging your congressman here, hey, look, maybe Bataan is not ready, maybe it would take too long, maybe it would be too difficult. But as they say, seeing is believing. I barely believe what I've seen with my own eyes, both at Bataan nuclear power plant and also at an extraordinary dinner last night in an office building here in Manila. Congressman Mark asked the gentlemen who trained around the world to be the first nuclear operators for the Philippines. They're Filipino. They're not. It wasn't going to be international operators. It was going to be your own scientists and engineers running that plant. He asked them to come visit. There were 13 who trained around the world. 10 are still alive. When we gathered over dinner, and they looked at me and they said, yes, we trained in Slovenia. We trained in America, in California, at San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station. We trained in Korea at an identical copy of that plant, and we were ready. I realized how wrong I'd been. Honestly, for years you've been telling me that this plant is so ready, and I thought, oh, how can it be ready? Were you really ready? And then I met your own citizens, like your astronauts almost, who were prepared for your moon mission to make nuclear power in your time here, who were then told, just sit there. And these were some people who had incredible job prospects around the world. They moved back to the Philippines.
Ano yan? Balik scientist ba yan, Kong?
O hindi, meron kasing, yung isa naging mayor, no, sa Iloilo. And yung kwento niya is pumunta siya doon for training, nakilala niya yung asawa niya na immigrant na. May immigrant.
Saan siya nagpunta, Kong?
Sa Amerika.
Sa Amerika.
Para mag-training. Tapos, nagkasal sila. Nakumbisi niyang umuwi ulit dito dahil gusto niya maging nuclear engineer sa ating BNPP.
So, Mark, your point being, we are not lacking as far as
At saka
engineers.
itong mga to, nagsakripisyo. No? They were recruited from over 1,000 at naging 13 na lang sila.
come
Kaya,
back and help the Philippines.
kaya ibig sabihin po, cream of the crop. Cream of the crop. Pinakamahusay.
So, Mark, you're saying that even if Bataan nuclear plant was mothballed for over almost 30 years, we can still bring it up and it can be up and running?
It would be considered a relatively young plant in America.
Yeah.
The exact same plant would be considered relatively young today. It would be getting its license extensions as we speak for 20 more years, for 20 more years. And if it's good enough for America, I have to say, I think as an American, it's good enough for the Philippines.
Ano ba yun? Ano bang, what happened to the Bataan nuclear power plant? Is it just a shell now? And
No,
are we
it's
still going to
complete.
outfit it with the
Hindi po.
reactors?
Kompleto po siya.
Kompleto.
Oo. At ang reactor po, yung pinaka-pyesa na hindi mo pwedeng palitan, tumatanda po yan under 80 years of neutron. Wala pang kahit isang neutron po ang naramdaman ng ate. Kaya brand new po yan. Bago.
So, despite that, we still have another 20 years, if ever.
No. We have 80 years.
80 years. Because he was saying kasi kanina
40
20
years ang
But these are the American plants that have already
They've
operated
already run for 50 years, no? So,
okay.
you extend 20 years and
yeah.
another 20 years. So, ganun po ang nuclear na galing Amerika. 40 years, 20 years, 20 years. So,
Eh, 80
total of
years.
80 years. From the day of commissioning. So, ang president po noon is Watts Bar 2 sa Amerika na mas luma pa sa ating BNPP. Kinomission noong 2016, binigyan ng 40-year operating license at may karapatan sa dalawa pang
Extension na 40 years, 2020. So,
But can I add another thing?
Sure.
I want to push harder on this space mission thing because it's to have a nuclear plant is difficult. It's like having a space program. Yeah, it's something that only the top class of countries are going to have and to execute well. But it also means if you execute it well, you have entered the first rank of nations. So here's how close you were. How close you were. The documents from the International Atomic Energy Agency, the final certifications that you're ready to load the fuel and launch, you received them. Even more, for me as an engineer, the part that really shocked me, I don't know whether you told me and I just didn't hear until I'd seen it with my own eyes, both the plant and your operators, is that you had done the hot functional testing. What is hot functional testing? It's when you take the nuclear plant and you fill it with the highest pressure water, the pressures beyond what it will experience when it operates, and you fill it with heat. You make it the difficult conditions beyond. You go beyond those difficult conditions and you check for leaks, you check for quality of the entire reactor system. It's the final, most important step before you put in the fuel and you turn it on and start powering your nation.
And we passed that.
You completed
We
it.
passed it.
When did we do
completed.
that?
Huh?
When did we do that?
In March of 1984.
So it doesn't matter that it happened 16
No,
years
we,
ago.
would do it again?
We're
Or
just
just
going to
do it
do it
again?
again. Before.
Okay, but leaving Bataan nuclear power plant, this is not to stop us also from putting up modular nuclear
Yeah, no,
power
no,
plants. Kasi
because-
like, yung island provinces like Palawan daw will do well with its own.
off the
Ito
grid.
po, no, we are
Modular.
55% coal, we are 20% gas, which is running out. That's why
Yeah.
we need to build
Palagay,
natural
yes.
gas LNG terminals. No? And the price is out of this world at
Yes.
this moment. So are we going to tie ourselves to expensive coal and gas? Or are we going to replace the 55% coal with nuclear over 15 to 20 years?
Yeah,
I think that should be the program.
So that's the timeline, 15 to 20 years pa
for
before it's up
for
and running.
many
Transition.
nuclear plants, many, not only one. We're
For
talking
many.
of a replacement for each and every coal plant and the incremental capacity.
Oo.
Kasi-
Para lang maengganyo sila, give us an idea of a comparative, price. Like how much are we
much
paying now
cheaper?
for
Okay,
for power now
kilowatt-hour.
vis-a-vis
I'll
when
give
we
you
convert
I'll
to
give you an
nuclear?
example. Yung fuel ng nuclear per kilowatt hour is 55 centavos, okay? Ang fuel for coal sa ngayon is not less than 10 pesos.
Yes.
Wow.
So, ang layo talaga. Oo.
But I was going to ask Kong Mark, we all know that the Bataan nuclear power plant was mothballed because of political reasons.
Yes.
Now that the son, the namesake, is back, I mean, not back, I mean, he's now the president. Do you see this moving forward faster? Do you see this now not anymore becoming a political issue, but more of
I would like,
necessity?
I am very thankful for the president's pronouncements, but politics is still politics. And I would like to see the DOE have a better, mas matindi ang sense of urgency nila. Parang,
Hindi pa.
wala eh.
Petik-petik.
Si Secretary Lotilla is not moving towards
I don't see the urgency.
more pro-nuclear.
I've requested that hiningi ko na magtatag siya ng Department of Office of Nuclear Energy, just like the US DOE has an Office of Nuclear Energy. Wala silang inisip doon kung hindi nuclear. Walang ganun dito.
Wala pa.
Okay, so, you being part of the Congress, we do need a like a regulatory framework
Yes
on
po,
nuclear
ma'am.
energy. Where are we there?
Actually, all the laws, lahat po ng batas ay nandyan na dahil ginagampanan ng PNRI and we were able to do it the last time. Kailangan lang ngayon, ihiwalay yung research sa regulation, lahat ng batas na ginagamit ng PNRI sa pag-regulate, ilipat dito sa bagong ahensya, tapos na. Meron po tayo niyan. It's not like, hindi katulad ng we have to reinvent the wheel, no. We don't.
So Mark, we were talking about one of the advocacies of program is the environment. And we know that we've been talking about global warming and climate change. So we've talked about price. And we've convinced our audience na yan ang it's the strongest argument is so cheap.
Yes.
Cheaper.
Let's talk about the environment now and nuclear energy.
Right. So one of the most important things you can do with the environment is not do business in the environment. To do business in the cities, to do business in the factories, to do business at the power plants, and not in the environment. So the special thing about nuclear energy is that only a few nuclear stations dotted around this island would make all the power. You wouldn't need the coal import terminals, you wouldn't need to take farmland, you wouldn't need tons of extra power line rights of way.
What happened to kaso NGCP, kaya ano mangyayari sa grid ng NGCP?
Okay
kapag
lang. I mean,
nag-nuclear
the
tayo?
existing
Dagdag
grid,
lang.
you know, if you replace, kung palitan nyo ang existing coal plant ng nuclear plant,
Yeah.
you use the same
Yung
grid.
pa rin,
Yeah.
yung grid.
I was going to ask you, Kong Mark, kasi I
But you don't
remember...
have to add so much.
Yeah,
Like
oo.
if you do other stuff, like you know what I'm talking
Coal.
about.
Oo.
No,
Pero-
wind and solar. Okay.
Malili.
I'll just say,
At
up
saka
to
yung
there na
base
lang.
load, yung base load kasi ng wind and
Yes.
solar, mababa.
Maliliit.
Wala po, wala.
What about nuclear energy?
92% capacity factor, 100%, 24, 547. Kasi, bakit 547? That's 1.5 year. Yun ang interval ng refueling. Titigil ka ng 2-3 linggo, kargahan mo ulit ng fuel, tapos andar ka ulit ng 18 months. Dire-diretso po
That's
yun,
very technical.
24/7.
Oo. No, I was going to ask kasi, Kong Mark, I remember when you were here, you said that you were so frustrated already. You've been really pushing for nuclear energy the past 20 years.
Yes.
And you said you might take it upon yourself already to get a group of businessmen
Yes.
to put up.
Yes.
Where is
But
that now?
since I have been advised by my counsel that conflict of interest because of my position now,
As
because I was
Congressman.
already elected.
Oo.
So I had to divest. I sold it to my partner, si Cesar Quiambao. No? So nasa sa kanya na yun.
So wala
na.
wala pa siyang balak na magtayo ng mga modular.
Meron.
pa rin.
Meron.
Oo.
Nagpaplano siya. Yeah.
Oo.
Yeah.
Okay.
So ever since the last time you were here, we've been one of the most pronounced and critical event is yung we've been rocked by this geopolitical
Yes.
turbulence
Alam
that
niyo-
is Russia and
And you
Ukraine.
just heard they blew up the pipelines this morning.
This morning.
This morning, they
Yeah.
blew them up between Germany and Russia.
So there's
So
no
anong gagawin
if
nila ngayon?
kung meron na sana tayong nuclear,
Nuclear.
energy,
Oh.
There was
We
already
would not
not gas.
feel it at all. We would not feel this crisis on kuryente, ha?
Yeah.
Siyempre, gasolina,
Oo.
pangkotse,
Oo, iba.
tataas pa rin. Pero yung sa kuryente, hindi naapektuhan ang presyo natin.
We won't have to import
It
from
might not even have
Indonesia.
been kasi ang presyo ngayon sa Zambales is already above 20 pesos.
Per kilowatt hour.
That's without the 4 pesos na hinihingi ni SMC, ha? So, imagine niyo po yung presyo pag nag-25, 30 pesos yan, talagang hirap na ang tao,
Yeah,
no?
sa kuryente.
It was 11 pesos, right? Before the crisis. It might even have been 6 pesos only, 5 pesos kung nuclear. Kung nung panahon ng BNPP, we had built a fleet of nuclear plants instead of the 55% coal plants.
Yeah.
We are like France, sitting pretty.
in
And
fact,
if I
part
can say
of-
something
yes, go
about
ahead, Mark.
the France situation and some other places, nuclear power plants, they make islands of protection from this energy crisis.
Yeah.
I live in Chicago. I moved there during the pandemic. And after I got there, I realized 80% of the electricity for Chicago, 8 million people, comes from 4 tiny little nuclear plants dotted around. Away from the lakes, okay? So what this has meant is that our governor signed a deal. Governor Jay Pritzker of Illinois signed a deal with the nuclear plants to get steady price. Then the energy crisis hits, and we get a credit on our electricity bill, money back on our
Money
electricity
back.
bill
Money
that
back.
keeps
Yeah,
our
because
electricity
I remember
bill
nga
simple.
po Mark saying here in the show, he
Yeah.
said that the Philippines, 10% of what we make goes to our electric bill,
Yeah, which shouldn't be.
which shouldn't be. So ideally, if we have nuclear, we should be spending only what? 1-2% of what we
No,
earn
right
for
now,
electric bill?
right now, kung sana nung araw pa nuclear na tayo, yung 20 pesos, 5 piso lang yan, 6 na piso. So 1/4.
1/4. Oh, grabe. Oo.
But also,
Hindi.
not just the percentage,
Yeah.
that whatever that percentage is should be of a much larger number because you will be earning like a country that has factories.
Because
earning
if
like a
we
country that sells advanced
kung
technologies.
sana mura ang kuryente, nung araw pa, ang daming industriyang pumasok, ang dami
Investors.
nating trabaho.
Yeah.
So, mas mayaman ng tao, mas komportable, ang kuryente nagiging alipin ng tao, hindi yung reverse. Tayo ang alipin ng kuryente
In
ngayon.
fact, ang Oxford Economics came out with a study na ang Philippines is one of the least attractive countries to
To invest in.
because of the high cost of our power.
Electricity.
Kuryente.
Oh, another
But question,
Okay.
why invest in the Philippines? You have some of the finest workers on the planet, and they can just leave and go to the factory in another country. Isn't that right?
That's
what's
Why do you have to
happening.
have the wealth and the jobs here if the factories can do just well with your workers in their countries with their power
Another
supply?
concern, aside from the cost of building a nuclear power plant, is the disposal and the nuclear energy waste. Oo. So, how do you propose we get rid of that? Kasi alam mo naman ang Pilipino rin minsan,
Yeah,
Yan yung
bara-bara.
mga tutol, di ba?
Oo, oo.
I'm sorry. Oh,
If I can make a
yeah,
suggestion.
okay.
Okay.
This studio makes good television. You don't need to use it for this purpose. But if BNPP had turned on and had been making nuclear energy for the Philippines for the past 37 years, all of the spent fuel could fit in canisters in a space smaller than this studio. Not your studio, but this building.
Okay.
And
After now, is that
it would just sit
disposed?
there.
Yeah, and then how do you
You have
dispose of it?
time. You have
Yeah.
20 years, you have 100
Dalawang
years.
paraan, ano, para
Different countries do different
unang-una,
things.
gusto ko sabihin, napakakonti. Pangalawa, prepaid. Kasi mag-deposit ka ng 6 centavos per kilowatt hour. Yung planta, hindi yung tao, no? To a trust fund to dispose that at the end of 60 or 80 years.
That long?
Yes, kasi
Okay.
konti lang eh. Napakakonti. Ngayon, magbutas ka ng 2 kilometro ang lalim, tapos mag-horizontal yung butas mo, lagay mo sa stainless steel canisters
Yeah.
at dun mo
Ibabaon.
ilubog,
Oo.
punuin mo, i-backfill mo ng putik at semento, and kalimutan mo na at wala na pong gastos yan forever.
Ganun ka, dali lang pala
Yes,
i-dispose.
pero bakit mo gagawin yon? Ang energy na nandyan, meron pang 20 times reusability.
Okay.
After which, it is safe in 100 years and less radioactive than garden soil in 300 years. So that's for the future. Isang malaking kayamanan na dapat natin ipamana sa ating mga descendants. So, nasa sa kaalaman lang yan. No? So,
Saka na wastong...
Oo, so parang
Now, if I can add,
Okay.
BNPP would not be the reactor that could do that, and only a few countries right now have reactors that would be able to use that fuel.
Yes.
Only Russia has them active.
Yeah, that's a
but China
generation
and
4
India are building
reactor
them.
to reuse
You would
it
have
20
to add
times.
equipment.
Okay, napag-usapan na natin, malinis na enerhiya ang nuclear energy. Ito ay mura. No? Nakita nyo naman yung cost. Reliability. Kasi sabi nila, ang wind, pag may hangin.
Pag may
ang
hangin,
solar,
pag may araw. Oo, ang tubig kung may tubig.
Ang hydro, di ba?
Hydro. oo.
Reliability ng
Gas.
nuclear
there's
energy.
likas na naaasahan, likas na mura, likas na malinis. Doon mo lang mahahanap yung kombinasyon na yon. Sa nuklear, wala nang ibang may ganun lahat na kombinasyon. Malinis, mura, at naaasahan.
Naaasahan.
So what's stopping us? So,
Ito.
I mean, so bakit sabi mo 37 years? So maybe yung nauna na mga dahilan could have been political. Diba? Because it's been closely
Hinihikayat
associated
ko
with...
nga ang...
So anong balakid natin?
Hinihikayat ko nga ang DOE. Takot na takot sagutin ng media. Gumawa ko ng liham sa sekretary. Ito 12 pwede mong sabihin agad-agad na hindi pwedeng questionin na katotohanan kung bakit mahusay ang nuclear. Hindi nila masabi-sabi.
No, but
Takot
has the
sila.
President made this a priority? Kasi if he gives instructions to Secretary
alam mo,
Lutilla, make it a priority.
Pangit kasi yun, kasi parang siya ang nagdidikta.
Oh.
Di ba? Hindi ba dapat ang DOE mismo ang siyang
Kusa.
ganado?
To take the
Kusa,
initiative.
di ba? So yun ang...
Meron bang madedehado? Kasi alam ko yung pinirmahan na executive order ng Pangulong Duterte. Merong provision doon for the phasing out of the coal-powered plants.
Well,
Meron pang madedehado doon.
Ako po
Kasi-
ang magfa-file ng bill na within 15 to 20 years dapat
Obsolete na.
mag-phase out tayo sa coal and gas. Not only coal.
Because?
Kasi po, ini-import natin lahat, ano? Yung 20 gigawatts na 15 gigawatts kamo na coal and gas natin, siguro worth $10 billion a year yun na importation ng fuel.
Indonesia.
Magiging magkano na lang, less than 100 o $200 million instead of $10 billion. Ang laki pong diferensya.
Mark, you've been here and in the Philippines for how long?
Just a few days.
Just a few days. And of course, you know that we're an archipelago of 7,107 islands. So what do you think? What is your suggestion as far as the 7,107 islands? Because of our geography, what would be the best layout of our nuclear
Energy
power
mix?
plants?
Sure. First, the very first one, although Mark has a great deal of ambition and wants to phase out the
Look at the camera.
coal and gas, I have to say that if you build nuclear in the very biggest island and it starts lowering the cost, and you could potentially subsidize some of that coal and gas that's already being burned in the islands, because it will take you a little bit longer to build smaller nuclear plants across many locations. Those smaller nuclear plants are being designed and being invented as we speak. In fact, at least one country out there has made a floating nuclear plant for its own use,
ganun
and it
pala.
floats it out and plugs straight in.
for
So
off-grid.
another thing to think of is that if you have very cheap, reliable electricity in the Big Island, it makes economic sense to explore expanding the cables between islands.
Submarine na lang?
Yes.
Some cases this will make more sense than others, but the economic value will start to spread through the country.
Example is
from the
Mindoro.
Big Island.
Mindoro is having a very bad crisis.
Yung ano,
Yeah.
electric cooperatives nila, na-imbestigahan
Yes,
pa lang
kung
yan.
doon ang planta sa Mindoro, it justifies the power line going to Luzon. O di wala nang problema.
Oo. So, at saka, so hindi na natin pupursue yung joint oil and gas exploration with
With China. Kailangan
Hindi
pa
ko
rin.
po alam. Hindi, iba yung oil and gas po. Kasi yung oil and gas, pang sasakyan, di ba?
Okay. Pang-kotse yun. Yung sinasabi mo nga, nuclear energy, pang-kuryente.
Pang-kuryente. Pero darating din yung electric car.
Oo nga.
Di ba? So, paano mo i-generate yung... Okay, you want to charge your car EV sa gabi habang natutulog
Tulog ka.
ka. May araw ba sa gabi?
Oo. Correct. Pero kung Mark, realistically, you're going to be a congressman now 3 years, but
Yes.
if you go for re-election up 9 years, what is your timeline? I know this is your passion, this is your
Gusto ko
advocacy
po
talaga.
ngayon pa lang bago matapos itong termino, meron na po tayong kontrata, either ma-activate na yung BNPP or nag-umpisa na tayo ng bagong nuclear plant. And in my district, doon po sa bayan ko ng Labrador, nag-resolution na po sila na iniimbita nila ang gobyerno o sino man nuclear, magtayo po ng nuclear po doon in exchange for libreng kuryente nila.
Okay.
So yun po ang aking tinutulak.
But in the meantime, since the President Marcos had a meeting, sabi mo nga with Newscape, what's happening there? I mean, are they also looking
They're
already
also-
looking into the
even
Philippines na?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but even the U.S. manufacturers are frustrated with the American government requirements because it's hindering their leadership in the entire world. Nauunahan sila ng China, Russia, and Canada because nakatali ang kamay nila. They cannot even converse with you on detail because bawal sa batas. Makukulong sila eh. No?
So both parties, both the Philippines and the US, we have parang
Yes, it's a very
government
old
is very
law po, 1954, Atomic Energy Act of America. That's what it requires, a treaty. But obsolete na po.
Yeah.
Kasi,
I will say if both sides want it, it could probably be arranged very rapidly. I'm just a humble American voter, but what I've experienced in Washington, D.C. is a very high interest on both Republican and Democratic side. They all agree that nuclear is important and it needs to go forward and that America needs to do more to help its allies. get
lalong-lalo
nuclear.
na kung makita ng gobyernong Amerikano na walang tumututol dito, gusto ng tao, bibilis po yan sa
So,
kasi
now-
dadaan po yan sa Kongreso ng Amerika at
Nila.
Senado ng Amerika.
So sa atin naman sa Pilipinas, ano yung prosesong pagdadaanan doon sa pagpili kung sino ang magsusupply sa atin
Ay,
ng
marami
nuclear
pong
energy?
magsusupply.
O
Bakit?
is that government to government? Is that private
PPP?
lamang? Na ano?
Hindi pa yan natalakay pero it could be private, it could be government to government, especially now because we have a unique geopolitical situation.
Correct.
Nililigawan tayo ng marami.
Oo, pero kung Mark, you mentioned na yun nga, sa Amerika, may treaty. But you mentioned other suppliers. Sabi mo, naunahan sila ng Canada, China at Russia.
Yes.
What if we look at them?
Yes,
So
dapat.
it's possible?
Yes.
Oh, so will it be faster
Yes.
if we go to Canada
Because
instead?
the most developed supply chain in the world right now, the people building the most number of nuclear plants right now is China. They are
Teka muna,
starting 10 new nuclear
Ano
plants
kung pag
a year.
sinabing made in China,
China.
parang medyo...
Hindi po sa nuclear. I'm
Hindi
sorry.
sa nuclear.
Yes. Because apat na AP1000 na disenyo ng Amerika, nauna pang kaysa yung nagawa sa Georgia na dalawa. Apat, 2018 umaandar pa yung Amerikano, hindi pa umaandar. Hanggang ngayon. Ilang taon na.
Bakit ang image ko are the coal stacks in China that pollute Beijing?
Because they're building
when
a
they have
lot of
nuclear
coal
factories.
plants.
Oo.
They're building a lot of coal because they're growing so fast.
Yeah,
But
so
they're
many
also
factories.
building the most number of nuclear plants because eventually they want to be clean.
Okay.
Yes,
So we can look, we don't have to constrain ourselves to the US. We can look at other suppliers. Oh,
Example
that's
sa
better.
China, sa Taishan, south of Hong Kong, dalawang EPR, right? European Pressurized Reactor. Nauna na naman ang China kaysa sa France. Silang nag-imbento nun. Nauna pa ang China.
Pero in terms of safety, ko.
Yes,
Safe, ha?
Disenyo ng, yes,
Like
world
parang
class. World
like Ali,
class po.
syempre,
May mga pictures po
napaprani.
ako dyan. May pictures po ako dyan. Yeah.
Made in China kasi.
Oh, Mark, how do we transition, you think? How do you envision the country's transition? It's going to be an energy mix first, right? Before we transition to...
For me,
Nuclear.
this is the simple thing I see. Countries with a growing and large population who are also able to get advanced energy like nuclear will be the future. And countries that either cannot grow or cannot keep their nuclear energy, there may be not as much the future. What that transition looks like to me is that you do the fastest and easiest path towards nuclear now as you build up your ability to run powerful plants, like nuclear plants. That excellence will spread to other parts of your economy.
Ang ibig niya sabihin siguro, kung sana noong 1986 may nuclear na tayo, hindi po nalaglag sa reles yung MRT.
Tumatalino kami pag ikaw ang
It's so
kasama
technical,
namin dito.
but I mean,
But can I say something
sure,
that
go
makes
ahead.
it less
Yeah,
technical?
yes.
And if you ask, what are you waiting for? When you ask Congressman Mark, he's thinking which parties, which people, which processes. For me, it's very simple. I keep getting asked everywhere I go in the Philippines, are you really thinking we can do this? Do you really think we have the ability? And then I discovered you did. You were about to do it.
Yes.
We are only missing the confidence and the self-recognition that you can, and no one can give that to you. You must get that for yourselves. And when I say you, I don't mean just you as hosts of this television show. I mean
everyone,
normal
yeah,
Filipinos,
yeah.
And your leaders will feel your confidence when you say, we deserve nuclear energy, we demand nuclear energy. The rest, I think you're in good hands, and you'll take care of the rest.
So maybe, Kong Mark, you should invite Secretary Lotilla to dinner with the 13 engineers,
Yes, actually,
scientists.
I've told them,
so
that
they're
these resources are around. Pero yun na nga, walang oras. Marami pang ibang inaasikaso. What about nuclear? Bigyan po ng priority. ang nuclear.
But I have to say, 13 was the start.
Yeah.
3 have unfortunately passed away waiting for the day when they can see
work
the nuclear
again.
plants.
At sayang yung pera. We've invested so much
Yeah,
already, no?
yeah.
And this is the future.
Mothballed nga for 37 years.
So we would like to thank you, Mark and Mark. Final messages from you both.
Before I end, he was invited by Alpas Pinas, which is a non-profit NGO, not yet an NGO, but soon to be an NGO, which I formed, I convened a few years ago to push nuclear kasi napapagod na rin ako na mag-isa. So mga bata to, they invited him to be the guest speaker in the annual Stand Up for Nuclear event which happens worldwide.
Okay.
Ang host sa Pilipinas for the last 4 years was Alpas Pinas. Okay? Doon sa show namin, doon sa SM Aura, SMX, we put the dummy assembly of BNPP.
Oh, Bataan,
No?
nuclear
Everybody was looking at it.
Yeah.
They couldn't imagine how such a small piece of assembly would provide such a large amount of power, like 5 billion kilowatt hours from 27 lang of those every year, no? So I asked permission from the speaker na humingi akong permiso, iparada yan sa North Lobby ng Kongreso. So kayo po, imbitado ko po kayo
Para
na
makita.
ay i-film nyo
Oo,
at
ayun.
may mga explanation po doon kung ano bang ibig sabihin yan. Po, para
But I think-
maintindihan
I
ng
think
tao.
the youth, they're more inclined to
Yes.
accept nuclear energy now. Di ba?
Yeah.
Because nga, it's really too much, how much
Yeah.
we pay for electricity. And politics aside,
Yeah.
di ba? We just have to be more pragmatic when it
Ang
comes
message
to
ko po sa tao, yugyugin nyo po ang inyong politiko, ang inyong mayor, vice mayor, ang inyong congressman, ang inyong senador, na gusto nyo ang nuclear power dahil kung manggagaling sa inyo ang kagustuhan, di sila makakahindi sa inyo.
And what
So,
about you, Mark?
panawagan.
What about a final,
Final
last say?
words.
I have a very simple message. And this is to the people of the Philippines. If you think that you're not ready for nuclear energy and that you don't deserve it, you're correct. You're not ready and you don't deserve it. On the other hand, I've seen your nuclear plant and I've met your nuclear operators. If you think you are ready for nuclear energy and you think you do deserve it, you're also right and you are correct that you are ready and you do deserve it. So it's really up to you, as it always was.
Ito ay continuing story, di ba?
Ito
We
ang
will have
ano,
you back again.
Nuclear serye.
Oo nga.
Maybe
So that
hopefully
we-
the next
for
time
our
we invite you.
continuing push
Opo,
for ano,
Mark,
There will be
nuclear
more
may
energy.
liwanag
concrete.
na.
Yes, sana,
Yes, may
sana.
liwanag na.
Oo.
Oh, but ano, at least for the past 9 months, may umusad na.
Yes po.
Nagkaroon na ng meeting sa
Oo.
UN, meron ng meeting with
Thank you for joining us this
Newscape.
morning, Mark and Mark.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very
Well,
much.
Mark
Thank
and
you.
Mark, nice
Okay.
meeting you.
Happy.
Thank you very much.
Ang oras po natin.
Ang oras, alas 9:11 na po ng umaga. It's cleansing time. Narito na po ang Red Juice Colon Cleanser, high in antioxidants and vitamin C. It helps support a healthy
Very
immune
positive
system.
comment.
Kaya bago po ang lahat, mag-cleansing muna, mag-Red Juice muna.